Besides the weather, input costs and availability have been a serious concern for farmers the last 2 years. Clinton Griffiths is at the Top Producer Summit in Nashville this week. Clinton, what are farmers telling you?
Michelle, you're right. It has been a concern. First, there were supply issues due to COVID, and then price became a pain point. Analysts say potash and phosphates are now down between 20 and 30%. Now, some of that drop due to shrinking demand as farmers pull back.
Downward pricing pressure is indicative of greater fundamental supply in the global sphere. Obviously, there's been a little bit of a drawdown in the Brazilian market, so whether we see this pricing plateauing or ceasing the accelerated decline will be dependent on when the Brazilians come into the market and to how much they come into the market. But we still see some kind of price downward momentum over the coming months and weeks.
From a chemistry perspective, Taylor says many of the supply chain hiccups have eased.
I think that the narrative has changed somewhat to a greater level of supply throughout the supply channel. This doesn't necessarily mean that there's not going to be that odd chemistry which is not so readily available, but it's certainly relative to the last few years. The supply concerns have abated quite a lot.
Well, it hasn't fully impacted farms yet. Rising interest rates and the effect it could have on operating lines of credit is top of mind as the spring planting season arrives. Companies like BASF and others are now offering 0% financing on products.
We're encouraging everyone to do the math every day, because every day the math is getting a little more expensive. Last couple of years, the difference between 0% and an operating loan might have been a couple points. This year, it's 8 to 10 percentage points, and on we have some tools together with our partners that you can work through the math, but for an average sized farm, that might save $40,000 to $50,000 in cost for this year.
Now, some of those operating lines of credit run multiple years, so interest rate impacts may take a year or two to work through the system. But Michelle, overall, it's been a pretty great event. Obviously, lots of optimism here in this room, although everyone's keeping a pretty close eye on the size of that South American crop and whether or not it's a record or near record this season. From Nashville, Tennessee, Clinton Griffiths, back to you.